Build creative confidence. Beat the inspiration addiction. Join the Writer's Gym. My guest today is the actor and playwright Claire Louise Amias. Claire has worked extensively on stage and screen, including feature films, number one touring, West End and regional theatre. She is also co-artistic director of a Monkey with Cymbals theatre company and has written, acted in and produced several projects. The Masks of Aphra Behn is an Offie award-winning one-woman show about the first professional female writer in the English language. The show went on a national tour and helped raise funds for the successful A's for Aphra statue campaign. She wrote a follow-up play, Oranges&amp, about Ben's possible friendship with Nell Gwynn. This was Offie-nominated and had a West End run. Her current project is Haunted Shadows, the Gothic tales of Edith Nesbit, which is touring the UK now until May of 2026. This is an adaptation of 3 of Edith Nesbit's creepiest stories, and it is in the world of creepy stories that I first met Claire. Claire Louise Amias, welcome to the Writer's Gym.
Hello, lovely to see you, Rachel.
It is really, really lovely to see you. I met you originally in your acting in ghost stories capacity in Borley Rectory, and I've sort of got talking to you about pretty much every angle of the Gothic in one way or another ever since. So, among other things, as well as talking about the writing, the adapting, it would be so lovely to hear about your history in ghosts, because that has been so formative for you, hasn't it?
Well, yes, of course. I think more or less started acting-wise with Borley Rectory, actually, and that had some success. And of course, I know you through it because your boyfriend, Mark, distributed it, right?
And one of my other guests this series, Ashley Thorpe, directed it. But do you want to give a bit of first of all, tell us a little bit about it, as if I don't know, because it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But also, I think one of the creepiest sides of that was I actually met you and your husband Jonathan Rigby through that. But he is the most memorable corpse during that, isn't he? So that would have been quite.
He was playing Harry Price. Yes, the very famous real-life ghost hunter. And Borley Rectory, of course, was apparently the most haunted house in England before it burnt down mysteriously, possibly in ghostly reasons. And I was playing Mabel Smith, who was one of the rector's wives, who experienced various apparitions and found a gruesome skull in a cupboard. And saw ghostly nuns. So that was a lovely project to be part of. And of course, Ashley Thorpe is a master animator, and that was all shot on green screen. So we're acting to a blank background, had to imagine where things were. You know, that was extraordinary when we actually saw the finished project, and you could just see all the beautiful details that he created within the mise en scène of the film. And really, really stunning.
Did that feel like love at first sight in terms of casting? Because just from what I know about you and your Gothic and literature background, wow.
Yeah, well, I've always loved ghost stories and the Gothic. Haven't done really that much acting to do with it, to be honest, at that point. And so, yes, I was wearing 1930s clothing and hair, and I got to look like something from one of those 1930s ghost story films. And it was wonderful to work on, really.
If we briefly flash forward a number of years, I'm just trying to work out how many. Was that 2016?
Yes, it was around that, yeah.
And we're now 2025, and I'm going to ask you to go into the awards and the nominations.
Oh, right.
Shadows. It feels like a through line of some kind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'm currently working on and about to start the tour of is a show called Haunted Shadows, the Gothic tales of Edith Nesbit, which is a portmanteau ghost story theatre show. It's a solo show, and I'm playing Edith Nesbit telling 3 of her most creepy stories. So that's lots of fun. And they are the shadow which is about a housekeeper who comes across an abominable entity when she's visiting a house. There is the pavilion, where there's a social gathering which is enveloped by the shade of a long dead necromancer, and a strange experience where a mad young girl reveals a terrible secret. So you can imagine there's lots of beautiful Gothicness and ghostiness happening in those stories. And this show was on in 2 runs. So last year it was on at Halloween in the Grimfest, the horror festival that's on at the Old Red Lion. And then we had a slightly extended version. So that was just an hour-long version of the show with 2 of the stories. Then we extended it to 3 stories, made it an hour and a half when we did a run for 2 weeks at the White Bear earlier this year. It got some lovely reviews, and I got nominated for the Hamilton Dean Award at that point. And I found out I've won the Hamilton Dean Award. So Hamilton Dean was obviously a well-known horror actor, and so this award now goes to directors and actors who have contributed to the Gothic or supernatural genre. So it's been won by Guillermo del Toro and Mark Gatiss, Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, fairly well-known people. So it's it's a big honour, basically. So I'm very happy about that.
And richly deserved, because what's so lovely about seeing a show in different runs is not just the evolution and choosing new stories to come in, but actually how richly you get to experience that character. And I sort of felt because you have the writing background, because you have the adapting as well behind you, there's a lot of different things going on in that storytelling, aren't there? I mean, I'm aware that you've adapted before, and you've written before from historical characters' points of view. So when you did Oranges and Ink, again, these are taking women in literature and expressing the stories that you find in there.
Yeah, so that was Aphra Behn in my one-woman show, The Masks of Aphra Behn. That was another one-woman show. So there was a certain element of adaptation as well as writing in both of those shows. So the second follow-up show was Oranges and Ink that you mentioned, and that was the possible friendship between Aphra Behn and Nell Gwynn. There are lots of anecdotes about the 2 of them who potentially could have been friends, possibly apocryphal, who knows? But I just thought there are so many gaps in women's history. Where there are gaps, it does give us license to create, which was the lovely thing about that particular play. But yes, there was also, creating in the gaps is lovely, because then you are actually writing. Whereas I did less of this with this show, because Edith Nesbit is a very well-known writer already. There's a lot of evidence available. And not only that, she also wrote about herself quite a lot in published documents. So she actually wrote articles about her own childhood traumas in a paper called Girl's Own Paper. And she wrote some essays, My School Days, where she talked about rather horrible mummies in Bordeaux and her fears of the dark and how they influenced her ghost stories. So I used those, and the voice of Edith in the outer story is very much based on her own words. So it's really sort of threading it together and structuring it, really, I suppose. So you're doing the writer's thing of creating the show. You're creating the thing, which is a theatre piece. Because obviously she wrote stories, but they weren't necessarily meant to be performed by somebody and put together in that particular way. So I've threaded together the autobiographical elements and her own anecdotes into the stories that I saw that were influenced by her experiences, if you like.
And there's a huge amount of research that goes into that. Was there ever a frustration involving how, because you know so much about these women, these are women that you've been interested in anyway, so you're bringing an awful lot of knowledge to it, as well as research that you might then do for the script. Was it ever frustrating to not be able to get everything in?
Yeah, I mean, I'd already decided to very much focus my one-woman show for Haunted Shadows. So I'd learned from doing my Aphra Behn one-woman show, where I actually was doing an MA at RADA, and my final piece was to create a one-woman show about her. And I just didn't end up doing it. I actually was so overwhelmed with about 2 years worth of research that I ended up doing a sort of directing instead a sort of anthology performance of her biographical elements of her life in her plays. I'm a bit obsessed with this, obviously, this style of thing. But and it wasn't until I'd sort of let it all settle with the Aphra Behn play after another couple of years, that it kind of, the specificity of the time that she was a spy kind of emerged. And I go, okay, this is how you write a one-person show of an hour and a half. You have to pick a particular point in which you can explore the whole of their life in a way, but you're really talking about this one era. And they can, as we do in real life, we talk about things that happened in the past and real life, but we're actually in this particular here and now, in this dramatic moment. And so it was in a different way with the Haunted Shadows. I didn't necessarily go, let's explore this moment in Edith's life. It is based in one moment. It's sort of set in a version of one of her spare rooms or an attic, a sort of lumber room, really. A room full of memories, if you like, whatever it is.
So liminal.
Yes, exactly. So it's about that playhouse creatures, in fact. You know, you've got the sort of, you've got some toys and you've got some knickknacks and things that are in an old chest that you can pull out and they spark memories, you know, and that's the way that we talk in everyday life when we're telling anecdotes, isn't it? Other things remind, a smell, a sound, the mention of a particular type of soap, for instance, could spark a whole anecdote about when your grandmother used it or something, you know.
There's a lovely Maggie O'Farrell quote about when she's often asked, why do you write in these different time periods? And she says that's the natural way a human being is. You know, we are in the time that we are in, but mentally, the moment there's a word or a smell or something else, we're over here and then we're back again.
And it's the way our brains work, isn't it? We are constantly time traveling in a way. And so the specificity in this current show is really about Edith Nesbit as a storyteller and telling the audience about her childhood experiences and how they really ingrained themselves onto these particular stories, I think. And that's what emerged, really.
That was exactly the word in my head, that there is that emergence, that we're sort of, on one level, we're learning about ourselves by revisiting these stories, but in other ways, we're sort of trying to outrun ourselves. That there are things, that there are ghosts that we take with us. And I think that's something I do love about it.
Yeah, I think there's also something about, you know, we both like horror, right? We both like ghost stories and the Gothic generally. There is something about taking us back to childhood that reminds us of how it feels to be scared. And so by delving into what is it? It's the dark. It's not knowing.
Something that I do remember talking to you about a while back was being in houses that have memories, or that when you associate rooms and places. And because when I met you were, I won't say any details, but you were living in a house that had been part of a family. And I grew up with my grandparents the first 10 years of my life. And because my grandmother then had dementia, and a lot of my memories are of that house and her remembering things or not remembering things. I think something that has always just really worked for me about storytelling is that those liminal spaces, that's sort of the human condition, isn't it? You know, there's this generation in this space and then there's that generation in that space. Yeah, haunted houses.
Yeah, and it's also, in a way, it's more haunting if you're getting hints of who lived here before. Like if it's your family, maybe it's warm memories and, you know, you get pulled back into your memories. Whereas if you're sort of, you know, something about the space, but not all of the story, then that's when your mind starts to play
and fill in the gaps
with you.
As you said about the historical figures, we can work within the gaps.
So I could tell you about one, a house that we moved into in Crystal Palace. We chose it because it looked like it was the house from Psycho. I thought, Jonathan's a horror historian. Let's live in the house that looks like the one.
It'd be rude not to.
And of course, we didn't have the whole of it because that would be ridiculously high rent in London. We had the top bit of it. So part of it was in the attic, essentially, in the eaves. And I wasn't scared about the fact that it looked like the Psycho house, just thought it was funny. So beautiful kind of Victorian villa, really. But then we had this handyman that used to come round. He was a really horrible bloke, actually. Really quite Gothic, something like out of something from the League of Gentlemen or something. And he was always having to fix pipes or something. And he told us a story about the previous tenant, about how he'd thrown red paint down the stairs and it had to be taken away by staff from an asylum or something. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is true. But then you start to go, was it red paint?
That would be my question.
Or, you know what I mean? And you just go, and there was things about how the entire top flat had to be refitted after he left or taken away. And that's terrifying. You're really filling in the gaps then, aren't you?
That really is terrifying, but wonderful inspiration to be around these things that are in your genre, so to speak.
But not so great if you're living in it.
No, really not. Really not. I wonder, actually, listening to you talk about filling in the gaps within the spaces of what is known. Like, I'm a massive deadline person. I want to know when a thing is needed in by. I'm wondering, in terms of writing or adapting or shows out of yourself, do you find that there's stuff in common there, that when there are sort of parameters, or this needs to be in by this time, or there's this gap in the history that I can fill, are things like that helpful for you in getting words out of your head and into the world?
I think generally, like, timings and dates aren't, if I think of it in terms of that, I don't find that helpful, but they are useful in terms of, can I project myself into it? So when I am able to get something just done, I know I will do it. I've got absolute certainty that I know it will get done, is because I can see the end result, whatever that is. It's me on a stage at this particular place, or it's a vision of the whole mise-en-scène of everybody on stage, or, I have a firm picture in my head. And at that point, I know it will happen,
That's beautiful. It's a lovely way of visualizing it.
And I use that. I actually utilize it purposefully sometimes, do that as well. Make myself kind of, I hate the word manifest.
I was just thinking, we're talking about ghost stories and we're basically avoiding the word manifesting.
But it's horrible. I'm manifesting. Anyway, no. It's kind of linked, I suppose. But
completely.
If you see yourself doing it, you're much more likely to be able to do it,
Yeah. And it's a very good technique for books as well, is when we're talking about, when we imagine what the cover's going to look like, when we imagine what's on the back of the cover. It's not, I mean, God knows it can also be just because it's really fun to do. But the purpose of that is to know there is going to be an end to the process, of the process that you're engaging in. You're doing that in order for this to happen, that it's already part of what's happening today. It's so
I don't even want to go on a walk unless I know there's something I'm walking to. So it's like, we're going on a walk today. Okay. We're going to a castle or a shop or something at the end of it.
Yeah.
Or even a tree. Don't care. I just want to know what I'm going to. Not just sort of generally doing it.
It's so interesting that you're like that about places, but not about time, because I'll be like that. I'll use mark and doing something as a deadline, as in, I want to know what time we're going for a walk later so that my brain can know it's writing until then. Whereas if I don't know, it's almost like sort of looking at the door and, are we going to do this? And when I've got a time around myself, even if it's 10 minutes or 5 hours, as long as I know what it is, I can pour myself into it. But what works for you like that?
As I say, I think, as I say, I think it's just a way of looking at it, isn't it? So a form of a deadline, but if I don't think of it as the date, because that can be quite scary for me, if I think of it as the vision, the visual part of that, which is, at this point, this thing has happened and I've achieved this thing and this thing exists and I can see it in my mind, then that's the thing that I'm going to, not the date, if you see what I mean, or the time or whatever.
It's almost like to avoid it being that you've got something clearer and stronger.
Yeah, or just the way your brain works, isn't it? I think this is the thing that, really blew my mind, when I'm teaching, because I teach acting as well, as you know, and you might not know if you're listening to this though. And, when you're trying to give quite simplistic directions to children, I do one-on-ones, I was told that people see things differently. I didn't realize that some people couldn't see things, their imagination as three-dimensional, like a photograph or a video in their mind.
Yeah.
Some people see in words or whatever. And so that blew my mind, that people see in different ways. And then you just work with what works for you. I will never be a maths genius and I won't see in numbers, Damn it.
Yeah.
think I've missed that buff, but I do see in images, you know, and so it's what works for you, isn't it? Really, that's like writing, isn't it? You know, you've got to work with what works for you, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about creative confidence and when we are wanting to get the best out of ourselves, are there things that you've done to either build your confidence or get your interest back in a project?
Well, I think, you know what? I think the more I dig at something and try, the worse I get at it. I think it just has to be kind of have the inspiration or not, have the vision of what you want. And if the vision isn't there, however much I scrape at it, if I've just lost the mojo, then that's kind of, you know, that's, you know, for me, I think the more I try to be correct, the worse, you know, the less creative I am.
Can I stay with that for a minute? So I think that is something really important, that if something doesn't work for us, the non-confident position is, therefore I must try harder at this. But actually what you've learned is it's completely the opposite. If something doesn't work for you, that's useful information. This way of working or this thing doesn't work for me. I will go and play with the one that does.
And this is the thing though, because sometimes though you leave it and you come back to it later and you've got your mojo back and wow, it's like the Aphra Behn thing. I did the MA and I was like, yes, I'm going to do this thing. And I was just like, I've got too much research and I've just lost the plot. Literally, I don't know where the plot is. There's too much information. Yeah. I left it for 2 years and then it gestated and then it just appeared one day. And I probably wrote it incredibly quickly, you know.
Tell me about incredibly quickly. I know it's a while ago, but do you have a sense of how long that was?
Oh, it was in a couple of months. I wrote an hour's worth of monologue because it was just suddenly I had the vision of what it was going to be. And I had the vision of, you know, Aphra Behn, not the writer, Aphra Behn, the spy, and on a boat.
And that was where it started.
With spying letters and things like that. And then, of course, from that, you can talk about, you know, a family life and early life, but you can also talk about her writing later on because I've set it as her later on after she'd written The Rover, her most famous play, looking back on her spying time. So therefore you can jump around a lot, but you're focusing one bit and you can talk about how, for instance, in that case, it was about she was the first professional woman writer in the English language and how did being a spy during the Dutch Wars for King Charles II enable her to be a professional writer. There were female writers, but they were usually knobs. You know, they were of the aristocracy. They were women who could do it for a hobby.
Yeah.
You know, whereas she did it to live. And what was it about her circumstance that enabled her to do that? And it, you know, my argument in it is that it was the fact that she lived this very different life to most women at that time, by, you know, going to Flanders and being in rather dangerous situations and to keep herself really. You know, and that kind of like a little gerbil on a treadmill kind of thing. I've got to earn my own living. My husband's dead and I've got to, you know, find a way of earning my keep. How can I do this? Oh, spying. Somebody's often spying. I'll do the spying. Oh, but I want to write. Oh, I'm right. I can write now. I can write and earn my keep, you know. Yeah, anyway, that's, it's funny how sometimes leaving things alone can just allow things to kind of gestate, can't they? I mean, you must find that with your books.
Absolutely. And I think there is so much in what you say about while the iron's hot, or go where the fish are, as David Lynch has it, that, you know, it will swim past, get it as it swims past, and you'll get so much done. Go, oh, right, I've seen that fish now. It'll be there later. I'm too busy or I'm not in the mood. No, it blimmin' won't. And that is important. The one thing I haven't gone anywhere near so far is what I think of as art-life balance, speaking of David Lynch misquotes. Any tips or any things that work for you around making sure the writing gets done, but also that life gets lived?
I don't know if this is the right person to ask this question to.
Is there a right person to ask that question?
Well, it tends to sort of go all or nothing. It's either I'm not doing anything or it's like, this is what I'm doing. What I've done, because I'm an actor and a sort of a theatre creator, a theatre maker and writer, I think what I've done is the two out of the 3 times I've written plays that have been staged and I've actually got somewhere, I have got myself an understudying job because I knew I'd be just paid to sit in a room. And boredom is wonderful for inspiring me. I get bored very, very easily if I'm just, somebody puts me in a room. I can't watch telly for that many hours, or go over lines for that many hours, So being locked in a room.
It's such a wonderful example, the way that every writer I speak to, including me, the jigsaw that they've created in order that that can happen, that most of us are not in a position that it's not advisable to be earning money doing more than one thing. And to find something that is not just money, but is interesting and is part of who you are. If I were understudying, that would be the worst thing in the world for me for writing, because I know what my brain is like with acting. And there's a sort of, like I was saying about going for a walk with Mark, there's a part of me that just keeps looking at the door. Do I have to do something? Whereas for me, the coaching, going into somebody else's brain, getting the objectives of that, helping them become the best version of the professional and personal self that they want to do, I will very happily do that, go back to writing, and I'll sort of feel like my brain it's almost cleaner for it. It's like whatever I do is helping the other thing. But I know there are people for whom that would be a nightmare, because it's finding the jigsaw that works for you, isn't it?
Well, also, I think with theatre making is probably slightly different as well to writing novels or short stories, possibly. So there's a lot of rewriting that goes on with theatre, and as you're creating,
we definitely have a lot of that.
No, but I mean, like in the room with somebody else.
Yeah. Collaboratively.
So I went away and wrote Haunted Shadows, the one that I'm touring soon. Adapted it rather. You put it together. And then as soon as Jonathan and I started rehearsing it, you'd work out the bits that didn't actually work in that medium. And so you'd adapt, change. That doesn't work. Oh, maybe we should put this in there, And so it's almost like doing it on the hoof. Or with Aphra Behn, more of that was written rather than adapted. And so I'd use all sorts of tools then. So I'd actually use my tablet and I'd film myself improvising in character. So I'd be Aphra Behn's mother, sort of telling her to go and find somebody new to marry, or I'd be a sort of rather pompous captain or something and just improvise. I kind of knew what information I needed to get out, in that bit or what I wanted to kind of bring in. But then I'd just improvise it with no notes or anything. And then I'd write it out as a sort of, what do you call when you just write out everything you hear? What's it called?
Brain dump.
Brain dump, if you like.
Transcribe.
Yeah. Transcribed.
Yeah, that's my favourite word. Yeah.
And then you go, oh, that's terrible. Let's take, I don't know, 75% of it out.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we've edited it together. So it sort of becomes an editing job as well. So,
transcribe is my favourite word in the world because it absolutely takes the pressure off and it's everything you need to do. It's, I don't know yet, so here it comes.
And then it becomes writing as editing.
Yeah.
Or sculpting.
Yeah.
It could be sculpting as well, couldn't it? Like take out what is not necessary.
Everything that isn't the statue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh no, that's beautiful. And flashing back to now, as you are being awarded things and you are preparing more things, what's now like?
No, it's very full on. So we're starting in 2 weeks' time. We start the tour.
Can you say dates? Because it won't necessarily be that when I share this with the world. So when?
Oh yes, sorry. Yes,
say numbers.
Start. The tour will start on the 24th of October at the Alma Tavern in Bristol. That's for 2 nights. And then we're going to the northeast. We're going to Yarm, to the Friarage Theatre. I won't tell you all of them because there's lots and lots of venues.
Tell us where to find them.
Alnwick Playhouse, and then we're going to Greenwich Theatre. But yes, we're going all around the country, and we're having a little pause after the 13th of December. We finish this year's shows at the Yvonne Arno, which is lovely. Then we start again at the wonderful Ustinov studio at Bath Theatre Royal on the 10th of January, which is lovely. Then we have a little pause, and then in April and May we're back, and we're doing about another 7 dates then as well. So we're not actually finished until late May 2026. So it's quite a lot. But
is this the longest you've experienced one character on the trot?
Yes, it is actually. Yeah. Yeah, and certainly the most tour dates. There are a lot. I mean, we're doing a lot of 1 and 2 nighters, some 3. It's in some ways it's easier when you're doing lots and lots, but of course it's an hour and a half of just me, so it's quite exhausting, and there'll be a lot of travelling as well. So I'm kind of pacing myself at the moment and trying to make sure I keep healthy and all that, you know.
And are you writing new people while you are doing that, or are you staying firmly in that universe for now?
At the moment, it's that universe, because I'm also being producer hat on as well, you know.
Yeah. It's you have many hats. You wear them exquisitely. They are many hats.
Yes, it's a bit crazy at the moment. I've decided to put a cap on doing these. I'll have you know, the second half of this year will not be Haunted Shadows related. I've just decided after May I need to think of new projects and stuff, but for the moment, it's all Haunted Shadows related. So
and that's another good tip in itself, is giving ourselves time to think very calmly and for as long as it takes on a blank page. You know, we don't know what's necessarily around the corner. Giving yourself time to breathe, think, feel.
Yeah, because that's exciting, right? I don't think we'd be in the careers that we're in if we were the sort of people that like routine. You know, you want something new around the corner, don't you? Yeah, and you're talking about work-life balance. I suppose for me, actually, having teaching acting, one-on-ones, the occasional group class. I used to do a lot of group classes. I direct adults in the evenings as well, direct plays, you know, 1 night a week for 2 terms, that sort of thing. That does keep me grounded, because I think, like you, having some of your attention on somebody else intensely is very good for you, isn't it, when you're in the arts? Because it stops you being kind of inward looking, and it stops some of the anxiety and fretting about your own work, because you're actually turning it out onto somebody else.
And it's remembering that everybody else, you know, not that we do forget it, but everybody else is just as real as we are, and everybody else is just as afraid of things, wanting things. It's all inspiration in the end. It's knowing everybody's different. There's so much out there.
And you know, you're right. When I'm directing my adult students, and you know, they're not professionals, you know, and they're experiencing stage fright sometimes for the first time, and they get almost a little bit spiky, and you go, oh, you've suddenly turned personality. You go, oh God, you're just really nervous. Oh gosh, you're lovely, actually. You're just being a bit of a pain right now because you're nervous, and you know, and it's sort of it reminds you to be empathetic, and and go, oh, possibly sometimes I'm probably a bit nervous and a bit unpleasant to be with as well. So, you know, it's all good, isn't it?
Yeah, all good. It's all good. You've told us the theatres. Is there somewhere we can find all of the theatres in one place, as it were?
Yes, indeed. So if you go to www.amonkeywithcymbals.co.uk, you can find the full tour dates of Haunted Shadows, the Gothic Tales of Edith Nesbit. You can look at all our lovely reviews and find out a synopsis of the show, see photographs and a trailer and all sorts of things. So go and have a look. The links to all the individual theatres are on there as well. So go there, find out about Haunted Shadows. That'd be lovely.
And that will be in show notes as well. So we will be absolutely directing everybody towards that. Claire Louise Amias, thank you so much for joining the Writers' Gym.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
You've visited the Writers' Gym with author and coach Dr Rachel Knightley. Production and sound design are by Ashley Lexine, and theme music is by Chris Gregory. To join a Writers' Gym workout online or in London as a guest or as a member, visit writersgym.com or email thewritersgym@rachelknightley.com.